Welcome everyone. I'm Allison Ladd, the Deputy Mayor for Economic and Housing Development for Mayor Rajday Baraka. It's great to see you today. Again, I know I got to see you in person and now I get to see you on Zoom. So wanted to be able to walk you through the plan in more detail that the mayor just announced this morning when we were on Bergen Street in front of Clean Cuts. So I'll just walk through the slides and as Frank shared, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in and we'll do all that we can to answer your question. So this slide shows the plan, the goals, and the process. And you can see here that the design of the plan really built upon the mayor's Newark Forward blueprint for equitable growth and opportunity in the city of Newark. So we know that the mayor has equity principles around collaboration and education and outreach and ensuring that we are a more fairer and equitable and inclusive city. So as we were looking at COVID-19 and we were seeing vaccinations were coming into the city, and we knew that our residents, we were trying to get more and more residents vaccinated, we also knew it was the right time for us to start talking about our recovery strategy in earnest. And so in January of 2021, the mayor asked us to start thinking about this strategy. So what we did is we pulled together internal and external partners, including Bloomberg Associates, and worked through discussions around what were the needs. And we asked people, well, what did they think the needs were for the city, for their stakeholders, and for representatives? And also, I went out to visit all of the SIDS and BIDs. We have 7 in the city over the last 4 months and sat and talked with each of the executive directors and their team about what they thought was needed because they were on the ground in the neighborhood and had a good sense of what was needed. So a lot of that is what's crafted into this larger plan was the information that we gathered through this process that we started back in January. And as the mayor said today, it was a collaborative process. You can see here, we definitely wanted to take the principles also of the Equitable Growth Commission and other things that we've done in the city so that we were enhancing and amplifying the work that the mayor's already started pre-COVID, and now we're just continuing to accelerate as we get to see the end of the COVID pandemic. This plan actually is an 18-month implementation plan. We said 2 years, but our goal is to do this all in 18 months. And then as more things are needed, we will continue to build upon the plan. So the mayor talked about it being a 5-year plan, but that's because we know it'll take us 5 years to get to some full recovery in some of our industries. But this plan, we want to be immediate, actionable, funded, and so we could get started right away. And the last things I'll say is that we wanted to leverage the federal funds. So we're so grateful of President Biden to be able to provide dollars through the American Rescue Plan and other funds that came to us from entitlement dollars through home and through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program through Treasury. So we actually have 3 funding sources that we'll be using for various interventions and recovery actions over the next several years. So this next slide talks about Newark Strengths. And this is where we're talking about how we want to build upon Newark Strengths and how we know that pre-COVID, we had a net job growth of 9%. We also had annual wage increase of 2.2%, and we were on par with New Jersey, our state averages. We also know here that our small businesses were a key part of our city and our our economy here. And that's where the 73% of Newark businesses have less than 10 employees. And also 58% have less than 5 employees. So you can see how much there was a need for us to really focus on small businesses during COVID pandemic. And now as we're looking to recover, and we continue to have that need. And then there's other things here that focus on the types of industries that are here in our city and also our anchor institutions that are critically important for us as we look to build upon our strengths. I can stop for a moment. Are there any questions so far?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Someone was knocking on my door just now, so I had to step away for a second. But the three funding sources, it's obviously like the American Rescue Plan, and then what are the other two?
Oh, sure. So this effort is primarily funded through the American Rescue Plan dollars. We do have other funds that have come into the city, like the emergency rental assistance money from US Treasury, and it's about $14.5 million. And we have money from home. We got a enhanced allocation of home dollars from HUD, and that's approximately $10 million. And those are sources that we didn't have last year, and it's exclusive of the entitlement funds we get every year from the federal government.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I missed this morning's press conference. Unfortunately, I had another Zoom call. This is Miriam. How are you?
Hi.
Just, I'm assuming you're going to get into this a little bit further about how that emergency rental assistance money is going to be distributed. Yes? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I can give you it now. It's actually separate from this larger recovery plan that we're talking about on economic recovery. But I can tell you now, the emergency rental assistance program will be announced by the end of the month, so next week, and we'll have applications that'll be available come mid-July. But the mayor will do a more formal announcement next week.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. The next slide here just talks about some of our challenges, and we just needed to be honest and recognize the fact that there are some challenges in our city. And so when we're looking at recovery and we're looking at our economic recovery that's equitable, we have to know that there are some things like we had tremendous job loss, and we had very high unemployment at 19%. And that even as of February of 2021, we still have high unemployment at 13%. And so we've got to do more to get our residents jobs and good jobs so that they can provide for their families and also enjoy our city and all of the arts and entertainment and other wonderful parts of our city. We also know that sometimes we have lost our visitors, and that has been difficult too because it's impacting our tax base around hotels, around parking taxes. But we're fortunate that some of our taxes are starting to return, like property tax payments and things like that. So, we're not where we were last year. We're definitely in a better position financially, but we know that we're still coming up short on some of our revenue projections for things like hotel stays and taxes there, as well as parking taxes. But we're really excited that NJPAC, Prudential, the Newark Museum, like they're all starting to open and have events. And so we know that that's going to help bring people back. And as the governor and mayor have relaxed some of the COVID restrictions around openings and social distancing, I know I always keep my mask handy, but we still have people that are out there because vaccinations are exactly where we want them to be, but we still want to push for further. We are at almost 50% of our city is vaccinated, and over 50% has already received one shot. And so we know that as we get to herd immunity, and we're hopeful, the mayor's saying by Labor Day, that this recovery strategy is just going to help catapult us further, and we'll be able to advance and help our businesses that may have been, again, negatively impacted during this COVID-19, but also our residents too. So we can dive right into the plan. This plan has 4 objectives, which are shown here on the screen. We had 4 objectives: good jobs, attract, retain, and expand businesses that create good jobs; 2, equitable development, improve and accelerate the development ecosystem and invested in Newark's equitable growth. We know that there's a lot of development that's still occurring in our city. Our planning board, our zoning board, our tax abatement committees, they are all continuing to meet. We have all of this virtually, but we know that the pace and the number of projects and development that's happening here is still on pace and maybe starting to surpass last year's work because of COVID. And so we're really glad about that because we need those revenues to come back to our city to help our general fund and our other services. But at the same time, the mayor is also very focused on ensuring those developments that happen here have affordable housing, are working with workforce development, have local jobs that are hired here, and that we really are working with developers who are focused with minority co-developers as well, because we want to grow our development teams here that are local and here in Newark. Third, sustain and thriving businesses. We want to help our small businesses rebuild and thrive. What we know about our small businesses is that they're resilient. Many of them, they may have closed their doors for a short while during the pandemic, but they've reopened. And so it's really great to see them reopen. And so what they did is they pivoted sometimes. So for those that were at the event today, you would have seen Salam Ice Cream. And the Salam Ice Cream shop actually used to be, you could go inside the ice cream shop. And now it's a window. And she created a window in which you have to walk up to the window to be able to order your ice cream. But in the past, you could have walked right into the shop. And so you can see how businesses were really adapting and figuring out ways to continue to be in our city and be ever present. And then last, vibrant neighborhoods. We know that our neighborhoods are where we want to continue to sustain development and also be very conscious about how we're investing our dollars. And I think the SIDs and bids that are across the city have helped us understand the commercial corridors even better and what the needs are of the people and the small businesses in those corridors. So we want to do more to really amplify what's necessary in those corridors. And these next slides will show you the action items in each of these objectives. So before I go into that, are there any questions?
Hi, it's Rebecca again. I apologize too. I know we've moved past the funding part of it, but like the first year, like the press release that was just sent says that the first year of this program has $8.8 million.
Yes.
And then when you were talking about the three funding sources though, like, you know, you talked about like, I think I might have misheard, but it was 14.5 million from the emergency rental assistance funds.
Right.
And then 10 million from HUD. So
Yes.
is it more than, does this initiative overall have more than 8.8 million?
That's a fair question. It actually is that each of those other funding sources are funding other initiatives. So
Okay.
you're going to hear more about it. So the emergency rental assistance is a separate effort and under our housing plan. And then also the $10 million for home is also under our housing plan. So we have more that we want to share, and the mayor kind of previewed it today by saying that we're going to announce 5-year housing goals, and we just haven't publicly announced them. But some of these other efforts are dovetailing right into those efforts. And so we're looking at it at both an economic and development and a housing approach. So the funding sources will be delineated by action item.
Okay, so this economic recovery plan has 8.8 million from the American Rescue Plan,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. And just to be clear too, because like it says like the first year is going to have 8.8 million, but it's an 18-month plan. So like,
Right.
can I just say, like, is it accurate to like report that the whole plan is just like an $8.8 million initiative?
No, because I would say that we're just talking about what we have available today. And part of that is because, as you know, or you may know, that the American Rescue Plan dollars come in 2 tranches. So we have half of the funds in city already here in the city, and half we will not get till next year. So we were being conservative about how we were planning to move forward on our efforts to make sure that we can fund activities today, but the mayor has a myriad of other things he wants to do with the American Rescue Plan in addition to this effort. And then second, we know we'll get more dollars in the second tranche. So we'll be able to talk further as the second tranche comes to the city. And finally, for the other efforts, if there's a funding need, that's just what we have to figure out through our budget process and, the budget for 2022, which we'll be thinking about very soon as we look at next year's budget. So, so that's the way I would think about it is for year one, we have funds that are available right now that we're going to work to deploy. And then for year two, we will likely have a similar amount, but it's not finalized at this moment.
So is the entire 8.8, was that all American Rescue Funds? Not to beat a dead horse, but.
No, yes, it is.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is American Rescue dollars.
Okay,
Yes.
yep.
And that 8.8 is for year one then?
Yeah, yes, correct. So if you go to if you go to the next slide, so here you'll have the different action items by objective. So in this first slide, we talk about good jobs, and this was our first objective. And there's 2 action items under this category, as you can see here. The first is to support high growth startups, including support for women and minority founders. And then the second one is to launch sector initiatives to attract and grow good jobs. So what you can see here is that in these 2 action items, we know that our unemployment is high, but it is coming down from last year. But we know that our residents need to have access to training, to direct marketing and affirmative marketing around what jobs are available, and also making sure we're connecting people to the jobs and not just offering them and then others are able to apply and perhaps Newarkers are not being selected. So we want to be very conscious about how we're connecting people to job opportunities. So that's the thinking behind this good jobs, the 2 action items here.
Now I got thrown, when I'm writing or when we're writing, we were barred from using a lot of acronyms. So I got thrown by a lot of the acronyms. So FTE, full-time employee?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, FTE is full-time employee.
And what's EHD?
Oh, EHD is Economic and Housing Development. It's essentially the department, my department.
Okay.
I'm glad you catch that because we were trying to remove them.
Oh, really?
As much as we could, because it was a lot. I understood that.
Okay.
So we apologize. So if I go to the next slide starts on equitable development. And there are 3 items here under equitable development. The first is around compliance. And what we know is that the stronger compliance that the city has, the better chance we have for our development partners to do what they committed themselves to do. I think that we know that we have good partners in the city, and then we have some that are, not as good partners to us. And so that means that we have to have strong compliance on what are the timelines for development. So if the city sells land to a developer, they're supposed to develop within 2 years. And if they don't develop in 2 years, then we're supposed to have the right to revert the property back to the city so that it just isn't sitting there vacant, because that's not the goal of selling land. We want to make it into a neighborhood asset. So that's one of the things that we've seen, is that some of our partners have not been as good to the city as we'd like. And so now we need to strengthen our compliance so that we can get those properties back onto the tax rolls and into affordable housing or a new neighborhood asset. So part of that will come from compliance.
Allison, how big of an issue has that been, that non-compliance?
I would say I can tell you a handful that I know of right now that I struggle with, because they have been vacant for 5 years or more, and they were sold 5 years or more before. And it just is very frustrating.
Well, the Bear Stadium, right? I mean, that was still, is that
that one was a tough one, I would say, Linda. But I will say that with the change now of ownership, I feel confident that the new owner is going to actually start development, because they already have a funder and they already have it financed. And so that is a different approach to what you're saying. I agree with you. I was disappointed at first because, we had this great plan. The stadium was demolished, but then it sat. And while we got to have Moonlight Cinema there, which is a really great interim use, I don't think that's a long-term use. So I don't think any of us did. But I am supportive of the new developers because they've come in, they purchased the property, they are going to put 5% on-site affordable, 15% payment in lieu. It's a 9-phase project, but they're really complying with inclusionary zoning, even though they didn't have to. And that, I think, was a big win for the mayor, was for us to be able to have a big project that wasn't going to have any affordable on it, now have affordable housing there, and also have some other dollars to invest in other affordable housing projects that we know we need and that make sure that they're quality. So,
And the mayor mentioned at the press conference, what's the city's, requirement for affordable housing?
Sure. So here in the city, inclusionary zoning for 29 units or greater is 20% inclusionary zoning affordable units at 80%, 60%, and 40% of AMI. So that's the breakdown. But developers can do on-site affordable, they can do off-site affordable, and they can do payment in lieu. And that's all allowable by the ordinance. But Mayor Baraka would like us to push the policy on-site affordable. So since I arrived back in August of 2019, that has been everything that I talk about when developers come in to ask for tax incentives or looking at anything related to planning and zoning needs is that we need to do 20% on-site affordable. And sometimes it's a real negotiation because they want to explain that it doesn't work financially for the project. But I'm really proud of the team that I have here that works on the tax abatements because we're really able to analyze the numbers and do what's in the best interest for the city.
But didn't he say total? Wasn't there a total, like, I don't know, 20,000 units or something like that? Or did I mishear that?
Oh, I see. If you're talking about what the mayor was talking about with the climb report. So Rutgers Climb, David Trout, they released a report about affordable housing needs in the city of Newark in February of this year. And one of the things in the report, I believe it says, is that we need, I don't want to misquote it. I think I'd rather give you the report and you can pull it from there, but I want to say it was 6,000 units, but I'm not 100% sure if that's the right number.
Okay.
But the report is very easy to read and we could share that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And the next two items on this slide are just that we want to have a rubric, just a better scoring system so that we can target investment in neighborhoods and corridors around housing development. And this is something really that Invest Newark will be a key partner in working with us on that. And the last one, which I think would be really helpful when we accelerate development, is having a digitized process to go through the permitting process and figuring out ways to link from planning and zoning to approvals for permits to making sure we have C of Os. I think that is all incredibly important. And we had started a conversation about this pre-COVID, and then COVID came and we had to pivot into immediate interventions. But I'm so glad that we're putting it back on the table because it is an important part. And I think it just helps our development partners be able to move more quickly and also probably save money so that they can do more affordable housing on site.
Just curious, I don't know if this fits into this category here, but do you have a sense of what the vacancy or rate is like in some of these new developments that have gone up in the last, say, 5 years? I'm thinking about like 1180 or, the former Bell Telephone Building and so on. How are those developers doing in terms of filling up their buildings? And, how is that helping or helping the city sort of establish a more diverse economic pool of people who live here?
Sure. I'd say two things. One, I think we'd be happy to connect you to the developers if that would help you to get the facts, because I can give you some anecdotal ones, but I don't have like a report that shows me this. So I can tell you the anecdotal ones, and then if you'd like to reach out to the developers, I can get you contacts. So like I can say, like Rector Park, that project is 100% occupied. And that was completed right before the pandemic started. I would say 45 William, which was started construction when the pandemic happened and is opening. I understand it's 70% leased up. And so, when I look at those type of statistics, I'm really excited to say that, people are wanting to live in our city and they're coming to move to Newark. And I think that that's a good sign for us. But if you'd like to talk to developers directly or their property managers, I think we could get you information, because I also know, One Theater Square, I think, is fully occupied. The turnover is quite low. And so I see that they're leasing from here and there, but I believe that they're fully occupied. So just let us know if you'd like to talk to them. I mean, there's a good number of developers that are doing residential for sure.
Thank you.
Hey,
Sure.
Allison, I know we want to move ahead too, but I'm just a little bit concerned because I have an interview at 2. So I just wanted to just squeeze in this question real quick.
Sure.
Do you know how many small businesses there are in Newark, and what qualifies as a small business in Newark?
Sure. So in Newark, I'd say, we know that we have about 1,500 businesses that were non-essential. And we know that because last year when we did the reopening plans, we had about 1,500 applications to reopen. They were not all small businesses, but that's the number of businesses. Also, we know that about 73% of the businesses in the city of Newark are small businesses, and that definition is 10 employees or less. And so what I tell you is that I think that with those two type of kind of metrics, that's where I would say we are. The last thing I can say is that of the 3 rounds for small business grant assistance, which was for businesses that were 25 employees or less, we actually were able to help over 300 businesses. So there's not a direct correlation to everything I just told you, but those are probably 3 different metrics that might help.
So up to 25 employees, right?
Right.
Okay.
So if I just go to the 3rd section, which is all about small businesses and a lot of what we were highlighting today when we were on Bergen. So you'll see here, 1, create business navigators. So these business navigators are meant to help people navigate City Hall. And something we learned, especially during COVID, is that we do need person-to-person contact for our small businesses. And then when they come to City Hall, there should be an easy way for them to know, okay, this is a planning and zoning activity. This is an engineering activity. I have to go to special taxes. These are the type of licenses I need. This is where I go to the tax assessor. And as you may know, those are in different parts of City Hall. So we want to create a more streamlined approach for people to be able to know how can they set up a business, maintain their business, and be able to be fully licensed and a good partner to the city. So we want to hire business navigators. The second thing is that naturally we want to provide more dollars to our businesses and our arts and cultural businesses. So we want to launch another round of small business grant assistance, as well as the Creative Catalyst Fund. And the Creative Catalyst Fund is led by Fayemi Shakur, who's the Director of Arts and Cultural Affairs. The third one, which I think is really exciting, and the mayor talked about it today, is that we want to increase broadband access for local businesses. And we want to increase it across the city. We would love to be one of the first cities in the country to offer free and low cost broadband access to small businesses. We know that we have Newark Fiber, which is Newark Fiber is a partnership with Invest Newark and the City of Newark's Office of Information Technology. So we know we want to expand that and bring it to more businesses in a way in which that we can automate and give our businesses a way to expand their lines and what they're trying to do with their business, whether it's a restaurant or an accounting firm or a legal firm or our barbershop, like where we were today. I think it was a unisex beauty salon is the appropriate name. So We were at the unisex beauty salon for clean cuts. And then next on here, we had reduce the cost of doing business in Newark. One of the things we know is that right now, during a pandemic, as we're even coming out of it, we know that the costs of doing business can be an impediment to the success of a business. So what is it that we can do to reduce the cost of businesses so that they can stay here and that they can continue to thrive in our city? So this is something that we want to figure out better ways and more ways to reduce fines, create waivers for different fees, but not negatively impact the city's bottom line, which is why these American Rescue Plan dollars are so helpful. Okay, so we go to the last section, which is all about neighborhoods. These are the last 4 action items. And here you'll see we want to invest in our partners. And this is really about our SIDS and bids. So we have 7 SIDS and bids. Today you heard from Ronise Bruce, who is the executive director of the South Ward SID. And what we know is that each of them, they have the ability to generate funds for special assessments, but that sometimes that's not enough. It's not enough for them to have those special assessment dollars to be able to provide more parklets like the one outside of Salam Ice Cream Shop, or the ones that are downtown. If you come to the downtown district, you'll also see parklets. And there's just not enough dollars for them to be able to do those place-based investments, or for them to have additional cleanups. So if they want to do special like cleanups in the neighborhood, they need to do like tree planting or grass cutting, or even trying to put bricks along their sidewalks or around their tree belts. Like, I think that there's so many things that they've talked about that they'd love to do if they had more resources. The second one is about making outdoor activation easier. So this one, we're a little bit later than we wanted to be on this one, to be honest, because when the governor relaxed and opened all of our businesses, we were planning to launch this plan. And so with that, now we're kind of in a kind of like doing both at the same time. So our businesses are having these streeteries and these parklets, but we also want to figure out a way to grow more of them and also do it safely. We do not want to have anyone build a parklet or have a streetery that is unsafe, because that's a liability for everybody. And we just want to activate our streets and activate our neighborhoods and bring people back out and get us back together again. That's a big theme for the mayor for the summer, is us getting back together again. And so as we are continuing to reopen our city and have visitors come see us. The last 2 are about activating vacant buildings. We know that when we drive around the city, even if you're downtown, you'll see like a ground floor retail, and you might see vacant store above, and it might be 2, 3, 4 or more stories. Well, we've got to figure out a better way of making sure those floors are also activated, because we want to be, bright and have the lights, and we want to have all of that energy here. But the darkness that comes with vacant floors that are above the ground floor, we want to change that. We need to change that so for our city. And last, affordable commercial spaces. We know that our businesses that are trying to find space really need to find space that's affordable. And, when I drive around the city, I see like vacant storefronts, and I'm wondering, like, why is that storefront vacant? And then I wonder when I see it again, like 6 months later, why is it still vacant? Now, don't get me wrong, COVID happened and that's something else, but I still I'm so glad to see there's a couple new small businesses in One Theater Square. I think Pete's Coffee just opened. And I think there's also like an Asian tea house there. And that's exciting. Or the activation of the space at Military Park, which is called The Yard. And the great owner there, Kai, he also owns Walla Burger. So he moved his Walla Burger, he's got that, and he's got The Yard. So it's great to see people activating some of these vacant spaces, but we have more. So what else can we do to activate the spaces? And is it something that the city can do to help make sure that that happens at the right price so that it really allows the businesses to thrive during the time. So the last slides are just giving you a summary of everything I just shared in one page. And then this slide here talks about the budget that we mentioned today, about it being about 8.8 million for year one. And we're looking at some staffing, but also some program dollars that will go out to the people and the residents, because you can see the 7.5 million of the 8.8 is meant to be program funds so that we can get dollars right into the hands of the people of the city of Newark. And just closing out, this last slide was our timeline. It just shows you where we started back in January when the mayor wanted us to start this effort and where we are today. So we're just really excited that we can start implementation, we can get going, and there's a lot more to do. And as the mayor said today, it's going to take so many people around the city, investors, partners, anchors, residents, businesses, his whole cabinet. Like, we are all going to need to be part of this strategy. And so we're just now gotta get to work. So I'd stop here and see if there's any more questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Allison, so this entails hiring what, 13 to 14 people?
Yes. So on this, we're looking at hiring more people. And what we know is that initially they would be contract positions because we only have dollars for, 1 year and then 2 years. So they were looking more on a contract phase. And then if we're able to generate enough funds through all the other economic development activity, we would then advocate for that to stay. But I think it would be an evaluation process, because maybe it's needed and maybe it's not, or maybe we just scale it back, but we wouldn't know that till after we implement it.
So these are
And I guess I'm sorry.
city positions, right? That you're talking about, the 13 to 14?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
You said you're going to hire 13 to 14 more people. These are city positions then, right? People working in City Hall.
Oh, that's a fair point. It could be a balance between city. We've thought about whether or not we should provide funding to have like an Invest Newark or a Newark Alliance or our SIDS and BIDs hire people. So I will say that that's not 100% clear, but what we know is we need more people who will help us make this strategy be effective. And so that's what our goal is that we wanted to resource it properly.
And then Allison, so obviously my readers are in the commercial real estate industry, developers, brokers. So what should be the big takeaway for them from the city with this this recovery plan?
Sure. I mean, I think that your readers are definitely going to be interested in, I would say, 2 parts. I think one, the equitable economic development piece. And by that, I mean, wanting to find a way to streamline business processes so that projects can actually get approved faster. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. That might have overstated that, but I do think it's a challenge that the timeline to go through the entitlements process, a tax abatement approval, can be extensive. And I think we all know time is money. And so if we can find a way to be more efficient and do it just as effectively and for in the best interest of our city and our residents, then I think that we should find that solution. So I think that your readers would be interested in that. The second one I would say is all around neighborhoods and what we're doing in the neighborhoods and how we want to invest there, because we want to look at place-based strategies, and we really want to find ways to activate sites that are in the neighborhoods, whether they're vacant or whether they're blighted or whether they're under construction. They're all things that are important to the city to figure out ways to activate them, and even downtown. So I'm not excluding downtown. It's one of our neighborhoods too.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Allison, it's Rebecca. How much money did the city receive overall from the American Rescue Plan?
Sure. It's approximately $177 million.
So why just did this like 8.8 for the economic recovery?
Sure, because in the first tranche, it's we only got half of that for the first tranche. And there are many other activities that the mayor wants to support, including this effort. And so he touched on it a little bit today, like around supporting the guaranteed income program. He also touched on the need to do more with workforce development. And I think he touched on the fact that we want to, trying to think what the third one was, around infrastructure. And so there are definitely things that he's looking at that are beyond what is in this plan. But this plan was an immediate way to work again with small businesses, neighborhoods, and our communities. And that's what we wanted to start with. It's a lot of what the mayor heard. As you know, the mayor held with the business administrator 3 sessions where it was a listening session about how should the city use the American Rescue Plan dollars. And a lot of what we're doing today came out of those listening sessions that the mayor held earlier this month, and I think at the end of May. So, so there's more to the dollars. This is just one step that the mayor was ready to announce today.
So is this 8.8 million for small businesses? Like, is that going to be enough to get these small businesses up on their feet? Like when these small business grants go out, in each round, because so far there's been 3 rounds, right?
Right.
So like, is there still need after those rounds?
I think yes, but I also think that the state has offered, I think they're on their 4th round and they might be going on their 5th round. So I think between the state small business program and the cities, the businesses are able to find a way to get resources that have been needed over the last 15 months, 16 months. I think that what we're trying to say here, though, is that let's be more targeted and more just for clarity. The businesses programs that we've had were less than $2 million. And so we didn't have $8 million programs. We had a $2 million program. I think we had a $1.5 million program as well. So it's much smaller in scale. So these are looking to be, partly to scale, but at the same time, enhancing other actions besides just investing in small businesses directly through grants.
So, and I'm sorry, I had 2 questions come in my mind at once, but and I just wanted to circle back to, I hate to be a pain about this, but earlier when you said that 73% of businesses in Newark are small businesses, I'm just trying to like pin down like a number of like small businesses. So like what is 73% of the like total number of businesses in the city?
I think I can get that for you. I was looking to see if it's actually in the slide deck, but it's not. I can get it for you. We have a source, so I'll have Frank send it to you.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I think that's about it. I thank you so much for doing this. It's really helpful.
No problem. My pleasure. Great to see you today.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I have one. It's Miriam. I work with students. I work at NJIT, and I'm always sort of on the lookout for potential reporting projects for students. So one of the things that interested me was you talking about activating the vacant buildings. Do you have specific concrete ways that you'd like to do that? I'm thinking even of, let's say, so I work at NJIT, so a stone's throw from NJIT is Market Street. So what do you envision that could happen on a place like Market Street to activate those upper floors of all those buildings that are, clearly vacant?
So I look at it as a carrot and a stick approach, I think. So the carrot approach would be to try to find a way to incent them to actually lease up the space, to either renovate it. So it could be commercial space or it could be residential space, and not just vacant space. So we could do like a way to call for incentives. The other way is a more stick approach, which would be, we could look at, what is the fee structure and how can we look at incenting them by letting them know that it costs a lot to hold vacant buildings in our city. We're different because we're not like other cities because we do have our state laws here. But in some cities I know across the country, they can actually just change the taxing. We're not saying we're doing that right now, but we are looking at all options because we can't have our buildings like downtown have, again, ground floor retail and like 6 stories above are all vacant and dark windows. Like that's just not, we just don't think that's viable for a long-term success of our city.
Are you gonna, I mean, so how do you sort of roll that out? I mean, or are you in the process of thinking that through or what?
Yes, we're in the process of thinking it through. This one's in our 6 to 18 months timeline. So it's not the thing we're going to do first, but it is something we're thinking about. I would say that by the turn of the year, we really want to have the actions in place in more practical ways so that we can execute them by the early part of 2022.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
Not for me. Thank you, Allison. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Linda.
All right, take care.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
I have no more questions as well. Thank you again for doing this. It's always helpful, and I wish the city would do this more often. So, but thank you again. Okay.
Sure. Thanks, Rebecca. See you soon.
Bye.
Take care.
And thanks, Miriam. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See everyone soon.